Hi, it's Rob from the Brush and Boltgun. Today I'm going to be doing a quick tutorial on how to paint Nighthaunt Chainrasps. So we're going to start working on the ghostly, roby kind of bits that are hanging down beneath him. And to do that we're going to be using Citadel Nighthaunt Gloom and also Citadel Nihilakh Oxide. And what we're going to do is we're going to wet blend Nighthaunt Gloom into the Nihilakh Oxide. So you want to put Nighthaunt Gloom into the recesses on the underside of the cloth and into the little creases going down the ghostly parts. And then you want to be using the Nihilakh Oxide and spreading that from beneath the crease up into the Nighthaunt Gloom. So you get the lighter colour at the bottom and the darker colour at the top, and then the deeper recesses in the creases. With that done, we're now going to move on to Vallejo Black, and again any black colour will do, and we're just going to paint the robe on the top half of him and also his eyes. Now they are great figures, these Chainrasps. When he first brought the Nighthaunt out, I was really impressed with them, but at the time I was collecting the Stormcast Eternals and also Demons of Nurgle, so I didn't really want to start getting another army to go with them. However, since Mortal Realms has come out and I thought I'd pick that up, I've started getting the Nighthaunts as well, so you'll probably see a few more Nighthaunt videos coming up in the next few months. Now once you've got that cloth bit at the top done, you're going to be using a little bit of Citadel Mechicus Standard Grey just to paint the gravestone next to him. And if you're working on any of the other Nighthaunts when you're following this tutorial, I'm using the same grey and the same method of grey for all the small bits of wall or gravestone or mausoleum that are attached to any of the bases of the Nighthaunts. The reason I'm doing it this way is because it's very similar to the way I do the stone normally, but I'm going to give it a slight blue tinge just to give that ghostly kind of hint to it. Now we're going to be using Citadel Leadbelcher, using this on the chains and the sword blade and the ball at the end of the chain. Also the pommel of the sword, using the Leadbelcher because it's quite a dark metallic. I don't really think there's going to be too much pleasant and shiny about it. Now you might notice from time to time a cat hair stuck to the back of the model here. And that's from one of the cats who decided to come and harass me at my desk constantly before I started filming. And they seem to appear everywhere all the time. Now I'm going to use a little touch of Citadel Sycorax bronze. I'm going to use that just to do the top of his sword there, the little guard at the end of the blade. Like so. Now I'm going to start with the shades, starting with Citadel Nuln Oil. I'm going to use this to paint all the chains and the sword blade and the pommel. Ordinarily I usually use this to do the rock and stones as well, but as I'm doing it so it looks a bit more ghostly and a bit more unnerving, I'm going to be adding a little hint of blue to the stone instead. I'm going to be doing the same on the base when I do the gravel on the base as well. So that it doesn't look the same as the stone on everything else. I'm going to use some Citadel Drakenhof Nightshade. I'm just going to use this on the gravestone next to him. This just to give the gravestone a slightly different colour to the stone it would normally do. It'll just make it stand out that little bit more. Next, a little touch of Citadel Druchii Violet. I'm just using this on the little sort of ghostly bits to the side of them and doing this on all of my Nighthaunts. Now you could do it the same colour as the actual ethereal bits on the ghost itself, but I just wanted to do a little bit of purple. Now a little bit of Citadel Agrax Earthshade. I'm going to use this on the hilt of the sword and also parts on the blade and on the ball and chain. Now this just give it a bit of a weathered look, a bit of rust as though the blade's starting to rot and the chains are all old and rusting as well. Like so. Next up, we're going to use a little bit of Vallejo White, but again, any white will do. All we're going to be doing here is working the white back onto the ethereal parts at the bottom of the ghost. Keep calling them a ghost, the Chainrasp, whatever you want to call them, but I will constantly refer to them as ghosts. But yeah, you want to be using the white to do the parts which don't have any of the Nihilakh oxide on, and you want to be sort of gently kind of feathering that into the Nihilakh oxide just to get that a little bit blended in together. Next we're going to use a little bit of Mechicus standard grey and start working on the gravestone. So I'm just kind of roughly doing this. You don't want to give it a 100% smooth coat because you want some of that little kind of hint of blue to show through from the Drakenhof Nightshade. And also because you want the stone to look a bit old and worn, you kind of want to leave some of the shade showing through on the flat surfaces through, so don't give it a really smooth, clean layer. Continue to work on the gravestone now. We're going to use a little bit of Citadel Dawnstone, which is a nice lighter shade of grey. We're going to do exactly the same again, but we're only going to do areas to highlight them. So I want to do as though there's a bit of weathering running from the X on the front of the gravestone, and then towards the top edges of things. We'll start to lighten that on the underside of each of the cracks as well. With that done, we're now going to use a little bit of Vallejo White. Once again, any white will do. And we're just going to lightly, and I mean really lightly, dry brush some of the white onto this, onto the top edges of the gravestone. Just using a really old brush to dry brush this on. And you can use a fine pointed brush just to go along the edges, just to make them stand out a little bit more too. Like so. With that done, we're now going to use a little bit of Citadel Seraphim Sepia shade. Just going to use that on the blade of his sword and also on the ball at the end of the ball and chain, just because that adds another colour of rust to the blade, makes it look weathered and as though it's been left out for a long time. Like so. I'm going to use a little bit of Vallejo German grey now. Any grey which is just lighter than black will do fine though. We're going to start adding some light colours to the cloth. While you want to be getting the crest of all the ridges and a lot of the flat surfaces too. You also want to be thinking about where the light's going to be catching the cloth and trying to do those parts too. But you do want to leave some of the black in the recesses to make those creases and ridges stand out. Next up, I'm going to be using Citadel Mechicus Standard Grey. I'm going to just pick out a lot of the details, the edges and the creases, just to make them stand out a little bit more, and also the raised areas which will be catching the most light. Now we're going to use a little bit of Vallejo Modeler Chrome, and this is going to be to do some streaks and nicks on the blade, and also to go around the edge to make it look like the blade is sharp and has been used. And then little notches and clean strikes on the blade from where it's been used in combat. We're also going to be doing the top of every link on the chains as though that little piece is worn. You'll see that at the start of the next section. So you can see now where we're up to. I've adjusted the light a little bit so there's no glare on the white of the ethereal parts underneath. Now I'm going to use Citadel Palid Witch Flesh. I'm just going to add some of this to around the edges and the areas that are completely white on his body, just to break up that colour a little bit and make sure it's not just all plain white. Like so. So back to the Sycorax bronze. I'm just going to add a little bit of colour back to the hilt here. The cross piece, I can't quite remember whether that's the name of it or not. Just add a little bit of colour and leave some of the shade in the recesses. Now I'm going to use a little bit of Nihilakh Oxide just to add a bit of corrosion to that part of the sword. Now it's a little bit more Citadel Agraxair shade. I'm going to use this just to discolour the robe slightly. Now where you've highlighted it, it'll show up slightly more, and it's not a lot of discoloration, but it just adds a little hint of dirt, so it's not completely clean, it's not completely black and grey. We're also going to weather the bottom of the gravestone too. You just want to go up a little way from the bottom, maybe a little bit round all the cracks, that kind of thing, just to add a little build up of dirt onto that. Now a bit of Athonian camo shade. I'm going to use this to weather the gravestone a little bit more, so the cracks and the flat surfaces are water collected on there, and also around the bottom of the gravestone too, so the damp's got into it and you've got a little bit of mould growing on the bottom of the stonework. Like so. And that is the finished Chainrasp. Now if you want to see any of the other sections from any of the other miniatures painted up, or anything specific like different coloured cloth, just give us a shout out below and I'll stick up a small video with that. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. Also, think about subscribing to some of our other social media linked below. Thanks very much.